Hello and welcome. Chef Pennington here in Austin, Texas, where we bring flavor to the table, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. Today is pumpkin roulade. A roulade is also known as a Swiss roll, a jelly roll, a holiday log. It's all very much close to the same thing. A jelly roll, you take egg whites, you whip them up, and you add them to yolks that have got sugar and all that kind of stuff, and you combine them and fold them together. A little bit different. We're going to do a roulade. It's going to be a little bit different. This idea comes from Ina Garten, so I've used her recipe and I've made a little bit of adjustments. And what you're really going to get out of me today is I'm going to show you how to solve the biggest problem ever when it comes to any kind of holiday log or roulade or Swiss roll. It is the actual rolling process. It just gives people fits. It cracks, it breaks. There's a bunch of different ideas on the internet how to do this, and I have the answer, and that's the cool part here. I'm going to show you the easiest way to do it where it's perfect every single time. We're not going to have any cracks, and it's going to be easy to fill, and it's going to be absolutely stunner. You've already seen the picture. You guys have an idea what we're doing here today, but I'm going to lead you through perfection, and it's going to be a stunner. Crystallized ginger. Have y'all ever had that before? It's got a little bit of spice to it, but it's not hot, and I'm going to show you exactly the trick to cutting it because it's a little bit gummy. It's like, how do you cut that up and get that into our cream cheese filling, which is delicious. And we're going to use wonderful spices. We're going to have all those holiday flavors coming through. This is a great thing to make any time of year because it's so good. I don't know anybody that wouldn't want to eat this. So let's go ahead and get started, y'all. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I think it's down there. And let's get started. We're going to start off with room temperature eggs. We're going to use 3 large eggs. If you want to hurry up and get them to room temperature, put them in some warm water and just let them hang out in a bowl for a little bit. So we're going to use 3 eggs. For the official recipe, there's 1 extra yolk added. There's going to be a recipe card link provided below so you guys can know all the measurements, so don't worry about that right now. We've got our eggs in there, we got sugar, and we're adding in our pumpkin puree. Now, make sure it's not pumpkin filling like you're making a pie. It's not the same thing. Really important tip right there. And we're going to take our dry ingredients, and we're going to sift them. You don't have to sift them, but I would suggest it. Maybe you don't have a strainer like that. But it'll just help everything come together and be very smooth. There won't be any little clumps of flour. Nobody wants to bite into that. And we're using the best seasonings we can possibly get, which is important. We ground our own nutmeg, which I think is probably the #1 tip I can offer you besides showing you how to do a pumpkin roulade, actually how to roll it up. Get some salt in there. Use kosher salt. Do not use table salt. And if you happen to have to use table salt, cut the salt back by at least 1/3 because it's much stronger. We're going to add our dry to our wet using a mixer. You could use a hand mixer, no problem. You could even go by hand if you wanted to. So don't worry about it if you don't have a KitchenAid mixer. Always go down underneath the paddle and make sure there's not any little bits hanging out at the bottom because that just won't incorporate, obviously. Spray a cookie sheet on the actual cookie sheet, then put down parchment paper and then spray on top of the parchment paper. This is very important. This doesn't let the parchment paper come off of the cookie tray. Plus, when we're done baking, it's going to come off of the parchment paper. So that's real important. You have to do that. There's no way around that part. And then just smoothing it out. And a couple little bounces at the end helps the air bubbles just come out. So here we go. Bring out a nice towel or an old one, doesn't matter. And we're going to put some more parchment paper down. This is very important. Crimp the edges just so it'll lay flat for you. That's not a big deal if it doesn't, but you certainly want it to lay flat. Take some powdered sugar, also called 10X sugar, and just cover the entire piece of parchment paper really well. So this is cooked all the way through. You know it's done is when you touch it, your fingers don't make any prints anymore. It's going to take about 12 minutes in the oven, and we're going to put it directly on top of our parchment paper with our powdered sugar. The powdered sugar is going to help everything come off clean when we're done. So it's kind of like an insurance policy. You can see that this is still warm. You see the little bit of heat coming off of it. So we want it close to the edge of the parchment paper as we can get it. This is really important on the rolling process and the presentation part. That's why we're doing this part. We're going to bring it all the way up to the edge of our towel, and we're going to start rolling. Now, the tighter you get this first part, the more defined the middle part is going to be. And that is up to you. But you'll notice that I'm starting really tight, and that's the way I'd suggest you do it. And you want to roll it together. I mean, that might make sense, but try to apply the pressure evenly on both ends and not just in the middle, or you're going to end up with an oblong shaped holiday log or roulade. So we're gonna let this hang out for just the amount of time it takes for us to pull this together. So it's gonna be fairly quick. Now you want your cream cheese to be room temperature. When you start it out, just put it on the counter. If not, you can put in some warm water and let it hang out. We got our powdered sugar in there. And then we're gonna put in heavy cream here. If you need a little more, a little less, that's up to you. So this is straight out of the freezer. That's the tip to cutting the crystallized ginger. Otherwise, it's just gummy. Doesn't really want to cut. So it's freezing cold. It doesn't freeze over and turn into blocks of ice because of the sugar. Because of the sugar, it won't freeze. So that's pretty important. Crystallized ginger is really cool, guys. You might want to buy a little extra because you're going to want to nibble on it. Take a little taste. Does it need a pinch of salt? Does it need a little bit more? Anything. You could add anything. You could add a little bit of cinnamon even there if you want to take the flavor profile up a little bit. And we're going to unroll it. That has only been sitting there as long as it took to make the cream cheese filling. Real important. So this is still warm to the touch. We don't let it come all the way down to room temperature. We're going to start getting cracks if we do that. And I promise you, a lot of people tell you to do that, and that might be why you've gotten some cracks in the past. So we're working with it while it's still warm. It's still pliable is a way of looking at how the warm element helps. If it sets up, it's kind of getting stiff, right, when it cools off. So the pressure, I'm using my thumb and the whole length of my hand, kind of like a border, to help make sure it rolls nice and even. Okay, let's take a little cut. This is a presentation cut. This is also the chef's treat, which is awesome. This is where you get to taste your goods, and then your end product looks beautiful. I like using a serrated knife like that. It just helps cut through nice and clean. You could use any knife you like, but you'll see we have a very consistent, beautiful deal. So plating, anything you guys can imagine. Here's the tip I have for you. Go with a dark plate, something dark, not white. You could do white, but dark is going to create the textural contrast, and it's going to make the color look beautiful. And we sprinkle a little bit of powdered sugar on top. Let it snow. Just put a bunch on there. It's one of those times where it's really fun to go overboard, if you will, on that. And we have a delicious bite here. It's sweet, obviously, not too sweet. It has all the flavors of the holidays, and that crystallized ginger is going to have your friends going, wow. Please subscribe, hit the like button. We'd love to have you guys hang around. Our social media links will be below. Here's some other links back to other good stuff on our website. And the right is a link directly back to our website where you can search anything in the search box. And you guys have the best. Take care.